Welcome, everybody. Anita and I are presenting today, and I wanted you to take a peek at your screen. And this is a list of what we're doing today, content creation, so hopefully you're in the right place. And then next week, I'll be presenting on email newsletters and also advanced topics on email newsletters. I'm going to show you a list of all the different workshops we've been doing. So I have to say it's a pretty aggressive list. I know some of you have been coming to all of them. We see the names afterwards, and some of you have been coming to all of them, so that's really great. And these are the group of sponsors. We're a collaborative. We're the Western Mass Technical Assistance Collaborative, and that includes SCORE, Valley Community Development, the Center for Women in Enterprise, Common Capital, the Franklin County Community Development Corporation. And so together, we've put together this series. And we also have besides this particular marketing toolkit series, we have, I think we have something coming up on bankruptcy. We've had all the different federal programs. So keep watching. And let's see what we've got next here. These are some of the locations of the MSBDC, and as you can tell, they're located all over the place and are just wonderful as far as technical assistance. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Dee Dice with the Valley Community Development, and I'm the Small Business Director, but I also have a certification with Constant Contact as they call it a solutions provider. So, and Anita, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, and we are going to go live as we speak. We're going live. I'm just going to add a title here, and just 1 second, if you would.
Great, and as you can see at the bottom of the slide, this is our collaborative down here and some of the different sponsors that we have. So.
Yeah. So we're thrilled that you're here today, and we'd love you to put in the chat either the type of business that you have or where you're from, a little bit about you. So as we talk about examples, we can also perhaps be a little more relevant with our examples. So please let us know where you are, where you're checking in from. We're thrilled that you're here. And Dee and I have been doing this seminar in different various formats for the past year or so. So we're just thrilled to be doing this. So we want you to imagine like running a business and things are going along, pretty smoothly. And then this huge event happens like once in 100 years. And it changes everything. It topples businesses. It upends customers. It totally changes everything, both in our business, in our society. And the not so scary thing is that you can't plan for this. And the scary thing is this is really what we're faced with. And we really believe, both Dee and I as business advisors, that understanding how to communicate with people during these challenging times is really more important than ever. And, there's just a lot of jargon around terminology for marketing. And so we're not going to really emphasize it, but we're just going to kind of cue you in on what those terms are, so we don't get too, technology related here. But what is content marketing? It's really thinking about everything you create, whether it's your words, videos, pictures, that you distribute to a target audience. The difference between content marketing, which is what the term is in today's marketing, and advertising, is a couple of things. You didn't usually use video, and sometimes didn't even use pictures if we go way back. And mostly it wasn't delivered to a target audience. It was delivered to everybody. So if you put an ad in the paper, it went to everybody. If you sent out a postcard, you sent it to everybody. Like everything was done to everybody. It was kind of a one-way communication out. The thing about content marketing is that it's more focused. You're deciding who your audience is, and you're speaking to them more directly. And most importantly, because you're dealing with them personally and because it's online, they have the ability to pass it on to their friends. So before, if you advertise in the paper, maybe once in 100 times, somebody would literally clip an ad and say, oh, Dee, you might be interested in this. But mostly it ended with the person reading the paper, so to speak. Now, if I see something that would interest Dee, I forward it. Whether it's Facebook, whether it's an email, if it's an online newsletter, I can forward it. So all of a sudden, I'm not just talking to Dee, but if I do it right, I'm talking to Dee and all of the people in her network. So it amplifies our ability to get the word out about our product or service to a wider audience. So if we think of, when, where, why, and how, we're going to focus in this on why and how. But when you utilize the different platforms and the different content is going to be determined by the best practices of whatever platform. If you decide Facebook is going to be how you advertise, or Instagram or Pinterest or Snapchat, we're going to dive into what are the best practices there. And then you're going to pick the platform based on the demographics of your customers. So if they're 40 to 60, it's going to be Facebook. If your demographic, your target audience is skewing younger, it probably won't be Facebook. So when we send the follow-up slides, we're going to also send a webinar that will discuss all of the platforms and the demographics of who checks in all those different places. We're going to focus today on why we're doing this, and this is marketing in 2020 basically, and how. So here we go. These are the reasons why we create content. There are 4 distinct ways we think about it. We want to entertain our audience, we want to educate them, we want to inspire them, and we want to convince them. Depending on the kind of business that you're in, you want to think about what percentage of the time are you doing what. So if you were, let's say, a therapist, you might want to focus on educating and inspiring. If you were a theater, you might want to take more time to entertain. And we're not so much educating, and maybe we're inspiring still, but education isn't something we're going to emphasize. And convincing is that as our audience draws closer to us and they're attracted to what it is we're saying to them, they're going to get closer to making a commitment to come on board and be our customer. So we'll go through that just a little bit more. The customers basically they're out there. They're just out there. And the activity on the internet at this time during COVID-19 is 725% up from what it was a year ago.
Wow, that's a great statistic.
Which is staggering. It's staggering. So we have to figure out what we're going to tell people about us, just to sort of let them know we're here. Hello, we're here, right? And then as they decide, oh, they're here and I kind of like what they're doing, then we're going to give them some information to evaluate our company and what we sell, product or service. And then they're going to say, no, I really do like this company, and now I'm going to make a commitment to purchase from them. And then ideally, what will happen is when they've converted to a customer, that then is going to become something they're going to be telling to friends. I just found this company online and they were terrific and I love what they write. So the purpose of the awareness and the evaluation and the conversion stages and knowing that is that we're going to speak to the client differently when they're at different places. So if you look at this slide, and I know it's a lot to see, so let's just take a minute here. At the top, we're going to see these are the 4 categories of content that we're going to have, that our company is going to provide. We're having all four, but perhaps in different percentages based on the business that we've got. To the right, the customer is converting and they're deciding, yes, we want to be on board. And to the left, they're kind of new to us. And
I just wanted to point out to people, Anita,
yeah,
if you look at the very top of the slide, because I missed this the first time,
okay.
on the left-hand side at the top, it says awareness. Okay?
Yeah, good. That's great. That's great. And I actually have a bar, with our controls for Zoom there. So that's terrific. And then we want to understand as well, so the left side of the axis is that some people are really rational and they make their decisions more cognitively, and other people are more emotional. So be thinking about that as well. So at the bottom left, right, the rational people probably are a little bit going to say, no, I want to be educated. I want to learn what you're doing. I want to learn about what you're doing. And people who are more emotional are like, no, I want to be entertained. I want to be inspired, right? But as people get the content that you're delivering in the way that they want to read it, they're basically moving along this awareness to purchase. In that funnel we saw, they're coming in and they're finding out about you, and then based on the quality of the information you deliver them, you're going to be doing this. So you're going to have entertaining content, inspiring content, educating content, and convincing content. And we're also going to think about the fact that some people need a lot of data, and we want to make sure we feed into those people. And then some people just make a decision kind of with their heart, and it's like, oh, I love those people. So if we just look at it, there are, think about it, in the entertainment category, you can think about quizzes and competitions, which, people love. They just absolutely love. On the educate side, infographics are great, and we'll talk about graphics versus text when you're talking about this information. And then in the inspiration side, that can mean different things to different people. Inspiration to some people is kind of, oh, so-and-so's doing it. I want to do what they do. That is inspiring because they have these icons, right, that they follow. But it could also be delivering content that's motivational in nature as well. And then we're basically always moving them along. And the more inspired that emotional group of people get, the closer they are to committing to your product and your brand. In terms of the people who are, let's say, more rational, the more you educate them, you're going to move them closer to your brand as well. So at the point that they've read your articles, they've looked at trends, infographics, then maybe they want to see a demo. Maybe they want to see a case study. So it's understanding the difference between the whole audience of your customers, and that people will be emotional versus rational, and also understanding that no matter who they are, they do want to have content delivered in all of these categories.
Great. And one of the key ways, and you all know yourselves, you digest information in different ways. Like Anita said, some people are very concrete and they need data, and the data inspires them to purchase or to move forward with a company. Other people are more inspired by a quote and a nature video. So it's really important to know who your customer is. And, we start this out as part of the nitty gritty in figuring out, there's all sorts of lingo. There's the target market, the avatar, those are terms that are used to say, who is your customer? So I want you to, as I go further with this, think about who your customer is. Because, and many times when Anita and I have given this workshop, people will say, well, I don't just have one. So we get two different things. Some people say, well, everybody's my customer, right? Okay, we would like everybody to be your customer. And some people say, well, I have a specific customer, a specific, I sell to, single moms, or I sell to people who are interested in cleaning products. But really, every product, service, business has more than one customer demographic. And it's really important to drill down and find out who these people are, what platforms they're on, what social media platforms they're on, where they get their information from, what other influences they have. So really kind of find out who is that customer, and know that, for our scenario here and what we've done in our 3-day content workshop, we've asked people to pick one target market, pick one group of customers, focus in on that. Then you can focus on creating content and moving forward with that one client group. And then after you get the system down, then you can do that for your other client groups. So
yeah,
that makes sense.
I think that's great, Dee. And we came up with an example that we thought maybe a lot of people could relate to. So what we're talking about, that person that you identify that Dee's describing, is also called an avatar in today's marketing world. And this is an example of Vista University. If we were a university right now, which is real big business, although some are nonprofit, but nevertheless very big business, their product really is a 4-year education. And we want to show you the contrast between the two target markets of this. And this slide, for some reason, is all off. And I'm sorry, we'll correct it before we send it out to you. But if we look at it, we have today, we are Vista University. Today, we have a tour of our campus. And who is going to come to our campus is Jennifer, who is a mom, with her daughter, Emily. So what I know is the admissions department, Dee and I are the admissions counselors. We know that Jennifer, the mom, is 46 years old. She's female and divorced. And this is her only child, Emily, who's going to be applying to our school from the Northeast. She's a nurse. She makes about $67,000. She did go to college. And what we know is that her goals are to help her daughter make a good decision about college. Her value is to provide support, love, and guidance. And her sources of information is, she's a very busy person. She is a nurse, and she's also a single mom. So she does like to look at things to do with home decor and travel. And she watches kind of the Food Network and kind of travel-y things. And she loves Mel Robbins as a motivational speaker. So her challenges or pain points, which is the top right block, is that she's, a little bit unsure about this decision for her daughter. She has a limited budget. She doesn't have a lot of time off. And she's worried about money. And she's worried that she's going to miss her daughter. This is going to be a huge adjustment. And so at the bottom, the objections and the roles is she's a little concerned with Vista University. It may be too far. Maybe it's going to be too difficult for her daughter. Her daughter has had a little, some challenges, and she's worried about that. And she's really, her role in this decision as a customer is that she will be paying the bill, but she's going to be very, very heavily influenced by what her daughter feels is the best decision for her daughter. She wants her daughter to really make the commitment. Mom, this is where I want to go. I'll put my best effort in. Please let me go there, type thing. And now Dee's going to talk about Emily, who's also with her.
Right. And when we did this in person, I had my cap on backwards and my cell phone right here. And I was playing the part of the 19-year-old, which I know well because I have a daughter that age. So one of the reasons that we're drilling down in detail is because you're going to market your services or goods differently if you're marketing to the mother or if you're marketing to the 19-year-old daughter, right? Because the 19-year-old daughter has different goals and values. She, you know, her interests are around socialization. She wants to know, you know, how many parties a week can I go to? You know, she's worried about the academics. I mean, that's not, she doesn't have confidence in that area. So these are all the things that we know about her. And also, where does she get her information from? You know, other friends, from Snapchat. You know, she's very involved in sports. So that's kind of a target area that we would focus our advertising or our content. You know, focus it on things that we think and we know that she is really interested in. So that's why, and we have after this, you know, a blank avatar sheet so that you can really take some time. I mean, it's really important to, you know, sometimes all this stuff seems like, oh, let's just get to the creation of content. But this is, you know, it's like the foundation in your marketing plan, because if you have a really clear understanding, especially of their pain points, then you are able to reach them directly and, you know, talk to them particularly. I mean, we've all had that experience where, say we see something on Facebook and you're like, oh my God, that is so me. You know, that is me. I mean, we all, and it's great when you get that. That means that person has done their homework to relate to you and what your needs are and what your concerns are.
So for the example about the university, we came up with, we really put ourselves in the position of, if we were the admissions department, what one product or service can we talk about to both of our audiences, but in a different way? So I'll just run it by you kind of quickly. We know that the mom's concerned. She's just concerned. She's concerned her daughter will be happy. She's far away. A lot of anxiety around the decision. We know the daughter has some academic challenges and is a little nervous in that area, but is very concerned about the social aspect. So Dee and I said, what would we do that could really be one product or service, but we could talk about it differently? And we came up with an idea for a Sunday supper. That if in the course of this tour, they would probably split out the parents from the kids, right? We would be saying to the parents, we know you're concerned about your kids fitting in. We know you're concerned that academically they're going to stay focused on their work and not get distracted by all the social opportunities. So we have Sunday suppers where everyone gathers in the house, and at that point we always have faculty members there, and we have each one of our students paired with an older student, and through that older student they have access to everything the campus has to offer to support them psychologically, emotionally, you know, educationally, academically, in all areas. We want to support these kids, and this is what we do. And then, so that's really important. So we're saying to the mother, every Sunday, there's going to be eyes on your kid, you know, not just by other kids, but by faculty members who are kind of watching. And that gives a weekly opportunity for someone to reach out if they're feeling they're falling behind. Then when we talk to the kids, if we split off and Dee took the kids to talk about Sunday suppers, it would be like, oh, Sunday suppers are great. We have these fabulous meals. Everybody gets together. We talk about what's coming up this week. And so it's a same thing, which is a Sunday supper, but we're using language that's speaking to the mom in one case to reduce her anxiety, and the student in another case, yes, to reduce her anxiety, but also to know that there's a social loop that she can always circle around to. So we'd like you to take just a few minutes to really think about, if you know who your customer is, if you are already in business, you know, what does that person look like? And think of who spends the most commitment with you, whether that's time or money. And is there some commonality amongst those people who are your real big fans? And for those who are starting a business, a way to start, but so you'll have to wait on this, would be to just do some research on Google as to who is the target market. And if you go on to any store, you can put in Google, who's the target market of Macy's? And they will absolutely say the target market of Macy's, I'm making this up, but, is a female, 42 to 65. I mean, this information is out there. So if you have a product or service and don't know, you'll need to wait. But let's just take 2 minutes. And if you have any comments, please leave them in the chat as you do this exercise. And Dee, you'll have to take a look at the chat because
I'm looking at the chat now.
Okay.
And one person is saying they're a private duty nurse and patients will be my customers, but it's difficult to really find the patient because in the elderly population, usually the children are in charge of the care. So really, that's a great example of having two different target markets, because yes, you might think that the elderly client is they're your patient, but really the children who are taking care of that client are making those decisions. And so that's where, that's a great area to focus on as far as any kind of content creation via social media, and finding out, where do those people get their information? Do they, are they going online saying, oh my God, I can't find, someone just to come in and drive my parents somewhere? Are they going on Craigslist? Are they going on like a neighborhood app? Where, as far as looking at this avatar worksheet, where are they going to find their information? And, that's, it may look like the elderly client is the person you're targeting. And on some level, that is possibly another source, because if a person's happy with their care, they might tell a friend of theirs, of course. But you want the decision makers. You really want the decision makers.
And in that case, Dee, would you even say that the adult children are basically the gatekeepers? Yes, I mean, once you are invited into the home and you're discussing your services with the family, yes, it's seriously important that that elderly person feel good about what you're saying. But realistically, if the kids don't like what they hear, you won't even get the opportunity to make the presentation realistically.
Right. And so another example from the chat is someone who has a window cleaning business. So it'd be very easy to say, well, everybody's my customer. Everybody's needs to have their windows cleaned. Yeah, but some people don't care, right? So, they're not your customer, Right. And other people really care and really need to have a clean window, say a business with a showcase window, so you're trying to think of who, it's not who needs your service. Everybody needs their windows cleaned, but it's really who cares about that and who is willing to spend money on that.
Maybe someone's selling their house.
Absolutely.
Right? They decide, gee, I'm going to have these windows cleaned, right?
Right. And so maybe one of your target markets could be realtors, who, and like Anita said, probing them, asking them, is this a service that, when people are selling their houses, is this a service that anybody needs? And they may say, oh, no, not at all. Or, oh, yes, that would be great. So, you're testing it out. And I think it's really important to say, with all this content creation, that it's all about trial and error, testing it out, seeing what works, seeing what, in all the different digital marketing workshops that Anita and I have co-sponsored and been with, trial and error, and then make sure you look at the data to see what happened. You know, if you're doing a webinar, do you get more traction at night or more middle of the day? It's always about that. And also knowing your target market. We had an example with a client a while ago who posted something, I forget what they were selling, something to parents of kids. And they were posting 3, 4, 5 in the afternoon. And of course, the parents were at that time picking up their kids from school, bringing them to sports, getting dinner made. And so when they switched their social media marketing to 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, huge increase. So they realized they put themselves in the position of the customer and say, well, what is the customer doing then? So I think that's something to, another reason to drill down on this, you know, who is your customer?
And, you know, a lot of people say to Dee and I as well that, you know, they're not as comfortable with the pain points, they're just not as comfortable with that, or the challenges. But the reality of it is every product or service needs to be seen in the eyes of the customer as a solution to something that they're struggling with. If people aren't, I mean, most of what we purchase or consume, again, product or service, is to solve something. And along those lines, people say you have to think about, are you an aspirin or a vitamin?
Oh,
right?
I love that.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting, because if you're an aspirin, right, we're going to buy an aspirin, we have a headache, we have a need, my head hurts. But a vitamin, maybe you're feeling great. So your marketing has to be understanding that it's not a pain point, but you can kind of convert the language a little bit. Something along the lines of, feeling great today, will you still be feeling this way in 15 years? You know, like suggesting that, you know, you're great now, which is perfect, but you know, vitamins perhaps will sustain that for you. So you want to think about not making it a pain point, but suggesting that, you know, do you want to wait until you don't feel well and you've run out of energy to start taking vitamins, or do you just make it kind of a lifelong commitment to maintain your good health? And so there are ways as well, both Dee and I and all of the collaborators can work with you more on this, but just to give you those ideas where don't feel awkward that you're writing down pain points or challenges, you know, and feel like you're being kind of negative. It's just, think about how we think. You know, we buy things that answer a need of some sort. And sometimes when people suggest a need that we didn't even really know we had, if it's valid, it's like, you know, that's a really good point. I do feel great, but I always want to feel this way. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe I should consider it, you know.
I think that works into the next slide, Anita, the before and after grid.
Right. So when you've determined what your potential clients' kind of challenges are, you want to think about what their life is before they've come across your marvelous brand and what it's going to be like after. And so these are 4 kind of ways we think about it. And let me just go to this and then we'll go back. Let's go back to the example of Vista University. And we're now talking about the mom, Jennifer. Before the brand, which is the commitment to say, yes, you know, Emily's going to Vista University. What they have is a huge decision to be made. It's like a looming, you know, the elephant in the room kind of thing. Financial planning has to be done. They're very nervous, anxious, unsettled. And what's their average day like? You know, they're researching, they're on Google, they're networking, they're huge time commitment of trying to figure out what's a good idea, what's a bad idea, reading all these articles. And this person is just, you know, undecided, confused, and I'd say tired and fed up, because it's just a very big decision. And now it's got a huge price tag on it too. So it's not just the decision of the 4 years. I mean, this is a huge financial decision. When Jennifer's daughter and she make that decision, she's going to go to Vista University, what's she going to feel? I mean, complete clarity. Now they can move on to like, we're excited, this is going to be great. You know, they feel secure in the knowledge that they've got a plan. And now there's kind of like time. They have time on their hands. They can sort of be planning graduation and they feel resolved. So the language that the university is going to use is, you know, this is such a huge decision. You must be feeling the stress and anxiety of knowing what the right thing to do is. When you make a decision, let's say, to come to Vista University, we promise you we will protect your son or daughter as if they were our own, kind of thing. Like you want to feed, you want to know that they're anxious. So what are you going to do about it, right? What are you going to do about it? And again, this whole Sunday supper thing, if we were the parent of someone, that would make us feel good, because we just want to make sure they don't fall through the cracks in being overwhelmed in any way. So to think of a product or service that directly answers a need. So going back, we want you to, again, take a couple of minutes. You know, if you'd like to share and chat, that's great. And just think about, you know, what is kind of life like for that customer you're targeting before they find you, and what are you offering them?
So I see in the chat, Anita, there's someone with a dance supply store.
Interesting.
And so I immediately think, when I think of that, like if my kid was in dance, I'd be like, thank goodness I can get everything in one
Place.
that I need.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
and so, you know, the you know, pain point or the challenge before that is, not only as a parent, you have to figure out where you're going to drive, what hours, you know, do I have to get off work early to get my kid there? Who's going to pick up? How about carpool? But then you have all the different gear. And of course, then if they switch to jazz and tap, then you've got to get all those too.
Right.
And so having, you know, a store that solves that problem for me, and also ideally, maybe it's, you know, I don't know if their demographic is towards locals, but, you know, working with all the different dance companies all around to promote that.
Yes. And we worked with a dance products company a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And as a result of doing a lot of this work, they actually have these sort of selling days when they go into the local studios and have all the kids try on shoes at the same time. And then you're keeping records, you know, Dee's daughter wears a size, you know, 6.5. So they're becoming like a partner, so to speak, so that if all of a sudden, right, your daughter is in some sort of a competition and they need to have, let's say, red shoes, all they do is call that place and say, do you have my daughter's info on file? Now I need a pair in red, kind of thing. Right. Along the lines, if you find as well that people have financial challenges, maybe during this time, maybe not at this moment, but as we come out of this, if people's financial situation has changed, you could think about doing almost like a, you know, $30 a month automatically comes out of the person's bank account, so that they're always building up a little pool of money in order to be able to buy the costumes, because we do know that when those costumes are due, you know, all of a sudden it can be a lot of money. So could you offer a payment plan where, you know, that they always know they've got a certain amount of money on credit, so if something comes up at the last minute. And the other thing is, how about delivery to dance studios? Right. You know, because then when they go, to Dee's point, you got to run around and get these kids to dance class. Now, at least when you get her there, the stuff she needs has been delivered by the place. What about that?
So when you're thinking about creating content, so those are areas, those are, you know, here we're helping you financially. Okay, that's a whole content area that we're helping you logistically. You only have to go to one place. And we're helping you because we're in touch with the dance studio and we know exactly what they're, so you're solving many problems for the parent. I think that's, that's what we all want to get with all of our products and services. What are we solving? What problems are we solving for our customer? Because I take vitamins, but I need an asprin, right? I want someone to fix it for me.
Yeah, totally.
One of the examples we could give here is, let's say you're in computer sales, and we all know, especially being at home more, all the different, cords and plugs and cameras and software platforms. And, those are, when we look at this grid, how are they feeling? Out of control. My camera doesn't work. I have too much on my laptop now and I need extra, need extra memory. So how is a computer company solving that problem for you? So when you look at all those pain points, also, those are ideas for starting new businesses or for adding a product line in your business. I've seen, especially now with COVID, we've all seen so many people change their business model a little bit because of different problems. And so, that's the companies that are sharpest are looking at the pain point of their client who's home all the time now, who needs extra curriculum or something for their kids, and they're changing their targeting. So we're almost down to the actual how-to.
Yeah, we totally are. And I'm just going to, whoops. I'm just going to, I lost my little arrow to move forward. I'm just going to stop sharing and reshare. I'm sorry about that.
And so all these slides will be made available, and you'll get the blank slides too, which will be great.
Yeah. Oh. One second. Do you see my slide?
Yep, we do.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that looks great.
When we thought of this, we just had to be amazed. This was way before anyone ever thought of marketing or content marketing or advertising. And look at the line. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. This is what is in at the Statue of Liberty. But think about it. Think about that in terms of knowing who they were seeking out to come to this country. It was not your affluent, you're successful, you're well-educated, you're living high on the hog folks. It was you're tired, you're poor. And I'm just, when we thought of it, I thought, boy, it's just such an amazing example about, a target. It's very clear who was being solicited to come here. So just as an example that maybe we could all create. So, Dee, how are we going to start? Right? So now we know why we're doing this, right? Because it makes sense that we have to do this, and we've simplified it somewhat. But so tell us how we're going to start here.
Well, so one of the things that we hear a lot is, oh my God, I don't know what to write about. Where do I start? Or I have so many things to write about. Do I write about anything? Do I write about everything? And so we think it's important to create different topics so that you can be a little more organized in the content you're creating. And next week, I'm giving 2 workshops on email newsletters. And that's one of the things when I talk to people about email newsletters is I feel is really important, because people also have that same feeling with email newsletters. Oh my God, I've got to write something now. What do I do? What do I write about? It takes me a long time. Well, I've got the system with email newsletters, which is similar to this, is that you create different topics so that in your email newsletter, you might have a topic that's an introduction. Say you're a garden center owner and you want to introduce what's going on. Oh, we've had a wet fall, or whatever you want to say. Then maybe you have a topic area that's what to do in the garden now. So a list of things that people need to do. And maybe your third topic is plant of the month. What am I highlighting this month? And the next one is what's a problem that's happening in your garden now, and how are you going to solve it? So that every time I do a newsletter or a piece of content, I have these categories that I can go to. And if you're a business that has staff, and I've worked with many different garden centers, I'll have them put a large sheet of paper, tape it on the wall, put the topics up there. And so the staff can walk by and say, oh, the echinaceas are really beautiful. We should do an article on them. And someone else would say, we should tell clients to do this. So in creating a topic map, you want to think about the different ideas, generalized ideas that you want to give to your clients, to your potential customers, okay? So if you're selling a window cleaning service, maybe you want some factual information. Maybe you want an article about how window clarity is equal to mental clarity or something like that. So maybe you want articles supporting your product that are not from you. So outside supports, that could be one area. Maybe you want an area that supports the actual nitty-gritty of what you do. Like if you have a product, it could be the product features. Say you have a product and one time you want to focus on one feature, one time on another feature. Maybe if you have a service, you want to focus on, say, if you're working with the elderly, maybe each time you create a piece of content, it focuses on one aspect of your business. We work with the elderly, all of our staff are, maybe you want to focus on how your staff is great with the elderly. Maybe you want to focus on, how you have great follow-up. So your services and why they are unique. So there's many different ways to go. And because when you have a business, you're the expert on what you do. Most people have lots of content. It's just a matter of organizing them. And so once you get the different topics here, then you're able to create content around those topics regularly. So I think that's the first step, Anita.
Yeah, and you have to take these classes next week because they're phenomenal. They're great, and I've attended a lot of times, and you just always learn something. But what you had said last time, Dee, which really stuck in my head, was like, think of a newspaper. Think of the New York Times coming on Sunday, and it's like, oh my heavens, like where do I even start? Maybe you decide to start with lifestyles one week, and then maybe someone else wants to start with sports. Like, people get used to the fact that your information is in different categories, so they can kind of go right to what interests them most. And as you say about the garden center, maybe what someone wants to know is the plant of the month. They're going right to the plant of the month, or maybe they're going right to the sale. So it allows that consistency, allows people to be able to go through your written content quickly to always find what it is they're looking for.
And also we're going to talk about how you can streamline your systems. And I don't know if it comes from owning a garden center for 25 years, but I'm used to doing things in bulk and then taking time off. And so what I would do in this content situation is I would say plant of the month. Okay, that's going to be one of my topics. I'm going to do the whole year. I'm going to at least, at minimum, put what I want the plants of the month to be. So then maybe I write something up later, or maybe I focus on that and take some time and just write up that content for every single month. And then I've got it done. It's like money in the bank. I'm all set. So it's usually easier to do something in a repetitive mode rather than to jump around. And so we want to make this as creating content as painless and as efficient as possible. So that's one of my little efficiency tips.
I love that. And you're going to talk a little bit more about these
sure.
platforms that you're going down the thing. And what we find is that it all starts with a headline. And so when Dee talks about these different sections, and of course we're thinking of a newsletter just at the moment, but even when you're on Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest or whatever you title that, is really going to allow people to know what's coming. And in general, there are 3 different types of headlines you can write. One is social proof, one is a threat, and one is a gain. So just to give you kind of an idea, a social proof headline is, this method always works, a simple way to get such and such. In other words, it's that tried and true. So don't worry about it. We already know it works. There's social proof behind it. And if we were to think about the college that we were talking about, Vista, we may title something, a simple way to select a college that works every time. So you're going to read it because if something works every time and you're a confused mom who's trying to make the best decision, you're reading that article. You could also go about it and say, the sooner you know the cost of college, the better, which is a little bit of a threat, but it's also indicating that we understand that that's a concern, so we're going to meet it head on. And so on a particular day that mom was feeling vulnerable about the money, again, she's going to have to one of these days say, I'm going to have to click on this because, it's true. I do need to know it sooner rather than later. Things like recognizing warning signs of, or again, the sooner you know such and such, the better is really, and these are sort of, rhythmic ways you can title. Let me just see here. The sooner you know how to beautify your house for sale, the better. And that could be window cleaning. Could just be something that when people are driving by before they're coming to the open house, to what degree do windows impact that visual presentation? So to think of that. A gain headline is, if we go to the bottom, it's where 86% of the students graduate and how to get in. That would be a clickable link that would take you right to Vista. And again, thinking of that, we've said it, this is the gain. It's like, 86% of the kids graduate in a world of that being more like in the low 60s. As a parent, you're reading that, right? So those are examples of different ways where such and such that result is and how to get it, little known ways. And so again, if we were to think about the vitamin example where you're trying to sell something that perhaps someone doesn't have that real pain yet, it would be little known ways to maintain the good health you enjoy. And it's like, and maybe it takes you to a website and it's about vitamin E, for example, or it could even be how to make people line up and beg to maintain their good health, and it could be kind of before and after stories of, so-and-so thought they'd always feel good, but at one point, that wasn't the case. Had they taken vitamin E or whatever that is. Go Dee. I'm
Well,
seeing
I want people to know that when Anita and I did this as a 3-session course, we did have a handout that was 3 pages of different examples of these. And really, we got that off the internet. Okay, we did not make those up. Those were headlines that were proven to get in the newsletter a high open rate, or proven to get people to look at them. So I encourage you to look that up online, print that out, and then every time you're doing a social media post or a newsletter, look at one of those as a template and see where you can fit it in. Because those are, in business, you don't have to think of everything yourself. Get some help from, and it's great. I forget who, I think HubSpot might have produced that, but use what we know has been tried and true. So keep that right next to your desk when you're creating content.
Right. And that's exactly what we did do. These are all of the ones that we talked about: the game, the threat, the social proof. Mm-hmm. The actual cadence of those sentences is right off their top 10 ways you can provide a title that will get people's attention. So yeah, that's a terrific point.
Great. So now you've got your topics. You've got who you're talking to, you've got your headlines. Now we're going to talk about content patterns. And so this isn't a must, okay? You've got enough right now to start creating content and creating it regularly. This is just an added bonus that will help many people. Because, like I said, we have the person that says, what am I going to write about? How am I going to even get started? Okay, using a pattern or a template, which I'll show you in a minute, it'll just help improve your posts, make them clear and faster. And we're not talking about writing a blog. We're talking about writing simple posts, simple, clear content. I mean, it could, certainly you could use a content pattern for writing a blog also, but a lot of these are made to help you get things really simple and to communicate things clearly and make your posts shareable. So there's several different types of content patterns, and I'm going to give you an example of just one of them, but I want to go over these 5 types also. So you're creating content for, let's say, a social media post. What are you talking about? Why are you talking about it? And how is it going to solve the problem? Those 3 things. Not too much extra fluff. You have to promote yourself. You don't have to say, I'm the best. You're just answering those 3 questions. And same thing with the problem solution. Who the person is, who's your target audience, what problem they have. The problem, yes, we've seen many people with that problem, and here's the solution. Okay, pros, cons, actions. Okay, I used to have this type of software and computer. I switched to this software and computer, and I'm going to stay with it forever because this is my decision. This is the action I've taken. And facts and opinion is actually a great one, especially for people who have products that are a little bit more on the educational side. Taking an article and writing your opinion about it. And it's actually been shown that a contrary opinion gets the most attention and mileage. Taking a fact about how people learn or something like that, and basically saying, well, I don't believe that, and here's why. I have the experience, I have the education, I have the knowledge, and I'm going to go, counter to what this article says. And the last one, the problem, agitation, solution, and outcome, is going to be on the next slide. So it's an acronym for PASO. What is the person's problem? So you're introducing a problem that your client is having. Okay. use the before language and the after language. And all of this relates to that before and after grid. So we did that before and after grid so that it's easy to use information. Okay, introduce the solution and then use the after language. So I'm going to use the garden center example again, because I don't know if many of you know, I had a garden center for 25 years. And I have worked with many garden centers before. So the headline, taken from Anita's headline examples, are 4 strategies to keep your yard and garden from being devoured. Okay? And then the problem is, are the deer eating your prized plants? The agitation, are you tired of looking in the garden and finding flowers half eaten? And then the solution, okay? Plant these plants. It's a perfect time to say, buy this product, right? Buy this anti-deer product. Maybe there's other solutions. And what's the outcome? You know, you can relax. You can say, I have a beautiful garden and I've solved my problem. Thank goodness the deer aren't here anymore. So this can be a short article, you know, where you're solving a problem and the person who has the garden is being thrilled because there's a solution for the problem. So that's an example of a content pattern, okay? It's almost like a plug and play. What's the headline? Pop it in. What's the problem? Pop it in, right? And so you don't have to do much thinking about it, okay? That's the whole point of a content pattern, is that the template and the pattern is there and you just have to kind of answer the questions. So like I said, not everybody uses content patterns and some people favor some over others. Different types will go to different types of businesses. But for now, if you think of just trying to solve those problems.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. And I think the predictability of how you communicate is welcome to people, because I think they get a lot of information in their inbox. And if someone presents information, you know, clearly and concisely all the time, I think people tend to read that because it's easy to ramble. And this content patterns really don't allow you to.
Actually, I have a great example. I wish I had pulled it up before, but there's a guy named James Clear, Clear. Now, I don't know if that's his real name, but he does newsletters and has written a book about habits and simplifying habits, and his newsletter is like, there's a lot of white space. There's number 1, there's a topic. Number 2, there's a topic. It's so clean and clear, but I have to say, I read it all the time. It's great.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, really simple and clear. And
to the point. Yeah. So when we talk about, when Dee was talking about the deer, right, we really want to be thinking about that part of content, right, everything we're going to create to present to our target audience. We like to think that it's really interspersed a lot with visuals, because visuals are really so important. And in 3 days, you'll only remember 10% of what was the information on these slides, which is really interesting. And it may not be that you're not interested. It's just that there's a lot coming in these days, isn't there? So our recall of printed material tends to be rather low. And 65% of you will remember this image. You may not remember all that it said, but you'll recall the image. So to be really thinking about that. And if you have a blog post or a Facebook post and you have great visuals in it, the likelihood of it being shared with people is 650% greater, which is staggering. And that, again, when we talked in the beginning about what's the difference between advertising and content marketing, it's the fact that it's like it's peer reviewed. It's like Wikipedia. If Dee finds something she loves, she's sending it to me. I'm sending it to somebody else. And all of a sudden, you thought you were only talking to Dee, but you're talking to Dee and 5 people she knows that she passed it on to. Now they're passing it on. So to have beautiful and compelling slides is really important as well. So why we're doing it, this is the way we have to market. How we're going to do it is we're going to have great headlines. We're going to use content patterns, at least in the beginning, until we get in the habit of it. And we're going to use great visuals to do this as well.
Great. And as far as great visuals go, we have listed these 3 as very common websites where you can get graphics. It's some of them are free. You can always remember when you go on a website like that, you've got to realize you may be paying for some, but usually they have a whole free group of them. You also want to make sure that you have permission, that some of these are free and anyone can use them, but some of them need permission. Some of them have a watermark across them until you actually buy them. So you can actually think you're purchasing the image, put it on your website, but then when you actually go to use it, then the watermark will show up and then you'll have to pay for it there. So just be a little bit careful, but these are 3 different areas that you can find images. So, and these are tools to edit images, and on some platforms you can edit them right there. Email newsletters oftentimes have an image editor right there, but the one we've used the most is Canva, canva.com. In fact, Anita and I gave a workshop on that 6 months ago. And so in Canva, it's great because you can import a picture or a graphic that you like to use, and then you can manipulate it, add color, add texture. They're really fascinating. And, years ago, I took a lot of courses on, in the Adobe suite, what are those called? Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. And those were great. Those are for high level, but Canva, really, they've made it very easy to use. And Adobe Spark, I hear, is great to use, is easy to use also. I don't know much about Snappa, but I highly suggest everybody get on canva.com account. And it looks like now when you sign up that it's going to cost you something, but keep looking around because there is a free canva.com. You just may have to hunt for it a little bit more.
And sometimes they will ask for the credit card, but that's only if you decide to go to the higher version. So if you want to stay in the free version. But we had somebody create their own kind of branded photography. They purchased some photography, they took it into Canva, and the total amount for their 20 photographs that they put on their website was $31. They bought pictures for like $1.50 kind of thing. So what was great, and then because they manipulated them in Canva, they're even more unique and they're really branded towards them as well. So yeah, that's a great
And
thing.
then some of the other tools that are very helpful to have once you get into scheduling social media are these scheduling tools. One of the one that Valley uses the most is Hootsuite. So, and also, in Facebook, you can schedule things. Hootsuite, they're called aggregators. Hootsuite is great in that you can take all your different platforms, schedule them all, and look at them all on one page. So you can say, oh, okay, we've got this going on here. Facebook, we've got this, and Twitter, we've got this, and Pinterest, we've got this, and then see kind of what's missing. And it's like I was talking about before, scheduling a whole month of promotions is such a wonderful feeling. If for example, with this marketing series that we're doing, our communications person, Julia, she scheduled posts because we already have the content all set. We already had the posters up and the dates and who is going to speak. And so we could schedule that all in advance, put it in the calendar, and put it on go.
Right.
So, and that's what all of these scheduling tools do. And some of them you have to pay for, yes, but not all of them. So,
And the ones that you do have to pay for, some of them, it's not a lot of money, under $10 or something.
right.
So
And to make your
well
life
worth
easier,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, to make your life easier, exactly.
Right.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and we'd like to open it up to questions and answers for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to wrap it up and have some concluding slides. So let me just.
So Anita, I see one question in here about keywords. Whoops, you just changed that, and let me just see if I can. Using keywords in Google. Do you want to comment on that?
Right. So if you go and if you Google keywords on Google, it will talk about it. And let me just wait. I'm just stepping away here to get this because I think I have it. Let me see where it is. You know what we'll do? We will send that out. I thought I had it right on this reference sheet. But what you can do in Google is you can test the power of language that you're going to be using for someone to find you. So if we made bathing suits, for example, we could put in the word bathing suit and Google will say, oh, 500 people were looking for a bathing suit. Then we could put in bikini, maybe 1,000 people were looking for it. So within the same category, based on what we're going to call the product or service, it will tell us what are the most important words that people are using to search that product. So those are words, absolutely, that you would incorporate. And when we send the follow-up email, we will have that link. In fact, I wonder if, Len, are you on?
Oh, yeah, I think in the chat he put google.com/
Oh, there we go. Great.
trends.
There we go.
Yep.
Google.com/trends. And so you can put in the different words. And
so if anybody else has any questions, put them in the chat and I will monitor them a little bit. We do have a closing slide with some tips. So we wanted to do the Q&A now, and then, as soon as we're done with that, we can close it up.
Right. And the google.com/trends was really important because we were working with an Italian restaurant and he was using words like lasagna and manicotti. He was using words that were descriptives of the dishes. And it turns out that if you look at the trends, it's pizza. I mean, pizza is really what people are looking for. It doesn't mean when they get there, they may not order lasagna, but for some reason, pizza just was the search term that they used. And so he really incorporated pizza into the descriptions of the restaurants, but knowing that he had more. And that was really impactful to do because people were not searching lasagna. They were searching pizza, the most popular. So that will give you that information. We also have, not to sort of make your head spin, but we have another 9 webinars, and 4 of those are going to be done by Google. Let me just get, just stepping away here to tell you what those are, because this may be helpful information as well. We've got reaching your customers online, getting your local businesses registered, making the website work, using YouTube on Google as well, and using data to drive growth. And those are coming up starting the middle of October. We'll send you a list of all the other ones. But
and we also have on November 5th advanced e-commerce, and I'm sure they're going to go through key words. We have a very special guest then, James Kwan, who is very well known in the digital marketing world and just gave a workshop at the big HubSpot digital marketing. And so I just have to make sure he speaks our language before we get him on. But I'm sure he's going to talk about that because, email, e-commerce, you've got to know who your audience is. You've got to be talking to your audience.
Right.
So,
and again, if you don't know who it is, doing some research, using, a great tip we always tell people in the beginning business class is to get a Mass Public Library card, which anyone in the state of Massachusetts can get. And they have a phenomenal research department that you can then go and say, I've come up with an idea for such and such, can you do a little research or direct me? And they can be very helpful. Additionally, Dee and I have access to the resources of getting industry reports. So we can do that for you as well. So here's Eva is saying, I just created a design in JPEG and want to use it in a Facebook story. How do I protect it from being copied? Well, that's a question of intellectual property. That logo then goes back to your business. And when we do our legal webinar that we do every few months, we do say that if you've taken a lot of time and effort to think about the name of your business, the logo, all the quote unquote collateral that surrounds your business, that there be some sort of protection. I believe that attorney Sarah Willey, who is one of our presenters, says to really just put TM on things like
That's
your
right.
logo. And also years ago, they used to say, and although the world has changed, but she says, no, it still works. When you create things for your business, you can also send it to yourself in an envelope. So print it out, date what you've done, and send it yourself and don't open it. Because if someone ever challenged your logo or said, no, that was my logo, you have something that is dated, postmarked by the post office actually, saying that as of that date, you were using that logo. And that's always been a way that people have sort of put it on record. And because the post office is a federal agency, real interesting. That's proof positive. But I believe Attorney Willey does say to trademark it, and then if it gets to that point, you can then register that, but just to put people on notice.
Right. So, Anita, I just want to be clear. When you put TM next to your logo, you can do that before you trademark it. That's correct?
Right. And then when your trademark is accepted, it gets registered, and then it becomes the R.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we...
All right. So I hope that answers that question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else before we close up?
Can you tell us in chat, is there something that you got out of today that you feel you can implement? Is there something in particular that kind of bubbles up as, I'm going to get right on that versus...
The idea is to implement something right away, even if it's going to the internet, downloading a list of headlines that are proven to work, copying them, and having them right next to your computer. So
yeah, the topic map we're seeing is great. Scheduling content to post. Yes, we will absolutely send you a copy of the PowerPoint slides. Absolutely. Yeah. And so Jesse had said, framing the before and after scenario is really interesting. Yeah, that's great. We're thrilled that you were here. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen.
Yeah, so we have a close-up slide for tips on creating content. And so I think, this is what I talked about before, knowing who your audience is. I mean, that feels like number one, because you don't want to be shouting to the wrong audience. You don't want to be talking to people who don't care about cleaning their windows. If you're a window cleaner, you want to target that and talk specifically, personally to your audience. And you want to form connections with them. You want to have a relationship. You want them to feel like you know exactly how they feel. I mean, we've all had that experience. Like I said, I use Facebook as an example, but, when I see something and, you have the person with the hair like this, like, oh my God, my computer's not working. And like, hey, I get it. That's me. Right?
We can all relate to that.
Yes. So I think those two in particular are good tips.
Right.
So,
And the idea of being, to Dee's point, we don't have to recreate the wheel, but just to be original in the way you present it, and original right now really can be using content patterns, because so many people are just putting a lot of content out there and it's overwhelming. And again, I think about like the sections of a newspaper, or even things like the cartoons in like the New Yorker magazine. There's something simple, predictable about it. It doesn't take a lot of time to read. You kind of get it. It's just an original way to communicate information. So to be thinking about that. Always check everything you're saying for accuracy. And if you're utilizing someone else's content, we always would like you to be giving credit to that original source, because that's just the best way to go. And what you're trying to do is create an experience. We're all at home for the foreseeable future. I mean, much more than we ever have been. Again, many, many, many more times we're online than we were before. And you have the opportunity to create an experience for your customers by delivering in those categories of entertaining or inspiring. And so we would love to help you do that further. And again, I can't encourage you enough to go onto the webinars next week that Dee will be doing, and just continue on the journey of creating great content. And we wish you all the best. Please stay well, and please join us again. Yeah, and Dee, goodbye.
okay.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, bye now.
Okay, bye-bye.